para essa palestra, quem vai mediar, né, vai ser o mediador do assunto da EA Inc. Recebemos a Juni Distra e também chamamos ao palco para falar a Andresa Rocha da Kokku e a Luísa Caldeirão da DX Gameworks. Se elas já estiverem prontas, elas podem ficar à vontade para assumir no palco. Eu quero uma salva de palmas para elas que estão chegando por aqui, uma salva de palmas, é isso? Vamos aplaudi-las, elas estão chegando por aqui para compartilhar um pouquinho mais dessa bagunça, né? Essa bagunça intercultural. Gente, palco é de vocês, muito obrigado, viu?
So, test 1, 2, 3. Seems to be working.
Testing, yes.
All right. All right. So, hello and welcome to our panel, Peeling the Pineapple on the Cross-Cultural Collaboration in our wonderfully diverse international industry. So, our ever-increasingly international industry allows us to partner meaningfully, uniquely, and rewardingly with cultures wildly unlike our own. But those differences also pose interesting challenges. And of course, Brazilian culture is unique. And today in our panel, we're going to explore how you can leverage Brazilian culture to uniquely set yourself up for success, but also what kind of pitfalls and hurdles you might be able to avoid as you prepare for collaborating with cultures from all around the world. To do so, we're going to take you on a journey through something that a lot of Brazilians are familiar with. We're going to be making cocktails. So we're first going to start with peeling the pineapple. We're going to discuss how you navigate the introductions, the first relationship. Then we're going to be juicing the pineapple. We're going to be working on creating a smooth production flow as you work through a long-term partnership. And lastly, we're going to be putting the cherry on top as we figure out and adding a little spice as well as we figure out how you can truly set your partner and yourselves up for success while staying true to your core values. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be starting with introductions for each of us, where my beautiful panelists are going to be sharing a brief example of a way in which culture has made a difference in their production lives in the game industry, followed by a roundtable walking us through the different topics for today. I'm Juni. I'm an external development director at Electronic Arts. My team supports EA teams worldwide with finding, signing, and optimizing external development engagements. And I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of different cultures. I've been working with Brazilian culture for the past 7 years, so it's honestly a pleasure and an honor to be able to talk to you today. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our first introduction of today, Andresa.
Thank you, Juni. It's a pleasure being here, actually. I'm Andresa, first of all, BizDev manager at Kokku, and I've been working in the gaming industry for 2 years now, which I'm really impressed, and I'm not that impressed that we didn't got to start the panel on time. So, yeah. So, back to you, Juni.
Oh, well, as we spoke, you also gave a brief example of the way in which you noticed that when you were entering the game industry, you were first attending different conferences, and how you noticed that was a little different from what you were used to.
Oh yeah, definitely. As Brazilian, we tend to be really warm and touchy people. So the first thing that we do is always seeing the people and say, "Hey, how are you?" and giving two kisses and hugging. And people sometimes are like, "Whoa, that's too much," or they were just, "What she's doing? What is happening right now?" So this I found really difficult and to understand where were I and what was happening in different cultures. So this is something really nice to talk about as well and bring to you our experience during all the conferences and all the meetings that we have.
Exactly. Thanks so much. And then handing it over to Luisa.
Yeah, hello. My name is Luisa, also known as Lu. You can call me Lu.
I work as a producer in the person department at the Game Works, and I've been on the industry almost for a year now. So I'm pretty new to the gaming industry, but not new to the production side of things. And that's it. Hello, everyone.
All right. Thanks so much, Lou. Of course, we were supposed to have a third panelist, but she was unfortunately unable to make it. So these ladies, fortunately, still have a whole bunch of interesting insights to share with you today. As mentioned, we're going to get started with peeling that pineapple, with figuring out how you can truly partner with cultures very much unlike your own. So the first question, let's open up very easily with, what does Brazilian culture mean to you? And I'll open this up to whoever would like to.
Well, I think Brazilian culture means that you will find really warm people, ready to face any challenges that it appears to us. And especially with outsiders, like with foreign people, we are so open to understand their culture, their language, and we try so hard to fit their needs. So in general, I believe that Brazilians are very welcoming. So, and also very late all the time.
I can definitely agree to that. I spent the last couple of days with all of you here in Brazil, and it feels like all of you take pleasure in hosting people and really making people feel like they're at home here and like they're welcome. And just, it's been a pleasure to be here and really feel embraced by the community. So that's been very, like, I'm not used to that in Dutch culture. Let me put it that way. All right. How about you, Lou?
I can only agree with Andresa. And yes, we enjoy a dramatic entrance with being late. We are also very smile driven, so we really feel comfortable whenever someone smiles at us. It's like the green sign for us to approach and create a relationship. So I see that we are really open to whatever culture we meet.
And if I can add to that a little bit from a Dutch perspective, like in Dutch culture, if you set a meeting for 10 a.m., then at 9:55, you're looking at your watch and you're wondering if the other person is coming. So for us, if someone is late, it appears as a sign of disrespect. Now, having worked with cultures like both Brazil as well as India, I've come to realize that the interpretation that we have of a very like rigid interpretation of time is not the way that others operate. And that's, in what I've come to understand from Brazil, not necessarily a sign of disrespect, but just a very different interpretation of the way that you handle time. It's also that in some cases, someone from Brazil wouldn't necessarily be late. They would actually show up 15 minutes early because it's more like there's a sort of time window around the meeting time. It's not so much you schedule for 10 a.m. and it's supposed to be 10 a.m. It feels more like it's 10 a.m. give or take 15 minutes. Does that resonate?
Yeah, totally. In Northeast, I don't know if in the whole Brazil, just to give you a little bit of context, Kokku is a Northeastern company, so we are based in Recife. And in Northeast, we use a word that it can mean a lot of things, like já já. Já já, I will be there. So this can be like soon. Soon I'll be there. And it can take like 5 minutes or 10 or half an hour or an hour or maybe like no one knows. But yeah, time perception is something that there's a huge range, let's say like that. So if you tell me that you're scheduling a meeting, of course, with working with foreigners, this changed a lot. You tend to respect other people's culture and expectations. But like with us, between us, Brazilians, we understand that there's a gap. There's a respectful gap that we are okay with that.
Yeah, and I think what I've come to learn, it's always a commitment. Even if there is that flexible interpretation, saying that you will meet is a commitment that you will meet. So for me, it's become about getting to know that. But if you're able to give like a warning sign ahead of time, that might help you smooth that over. So in addition to the time aspect, Is there anything else that you can add to make a stellar first impression? I think that we've talked about this a lot. I mean, we talk about food a lot, so I know that this topic is going to come up. But I think something that is very unique to your culture is the first impression that you do make with meals.
Oh yes. As I told before, Brazilians are super warm, so they really one way of conquer even trust within other people is asking them to go out for dinner or for lunch or invite you to dinner in our house. Even if we don't know each other very well, we'll always have, oh no, let's go home and let's have a meal there. So it's kind of a way of having, building trust within this, among the meal. I don't know how to say that. I think this is something that brings people together. And this is our warm way of showing our hospitality as well.
Yeah, I think also when you go to other conferences like GDC Cologne or GDC San Francisco or Gamescom, a lot of the parties feel a little forced. It feels a little bit like we're obliged to do a party just because it's part of the conference. Whereas if, for example, you look at the Kokku party or some of the other parties that have been thrown here, it's very much an opener to a relationship. It's an actual invitation to get acquainted, which is, in my perspective, a little different. Lou, did you have any other thoughts on creating that first impression?
I feel like a good first impression could be just to understand the person that you are meeting. Because sometimes if you're going to meet a North American, it's much more chill for us, for Brazilians, to start with a hug, with hello, how you doing, and with an informal conversation to start to develop the relationship, and then go to business, and then come back to their cats' names. So it's more easier. But for Europeans, for example, it's you need to act more professional. I felt, at least, to be more professional, to start the conversation much more carefully, because you value a lot the professional side of things. And then when you build that trust, you are able to create that informal environment to start the conversation, and then you'll know their cats' names.
Exactly. That actually feeds very nicely into the next section, like the meat of the questions or the topic that we're going to be discussing, and that's juicing that pineapple, like creating a smooth production flow. We've already touched on it briefly with topics like building trust. Is there anything in particular that a Brazilian can do to build that trust with other cultures? For example, I think in the past couple of days, what I've done here with a lot of the folks here is talk about a lot of stuff outside of work. It's been a lot of stuff about family and friends and about just in general, the kind of social stuff that you do. Would you say that is an integral part to how you guys build trust?
Yeah, totally. Actually, Brazilians are so... before doing business, we create relationships, and before anything, because for doing business, we need to trust the partner that we are working with. And this means that it's not about the deliverables or the work itself. It's about your values and your worth, and if it fits to our values and our worth. So that's why building trust for Brazilians, in my opinion, of course, is taking our partners to eat, and that's why we eat. Because in a dinner, we can talk about work, but mostly we prefer to feel closer to our partners, to our clients. So in this way, they can feel trust in the other way around as well. So this is This is what I think, and this is actually within our culture as well.
And that's definitely something that I had to get used to. Coming from Dutch culture myself, we are very task-based trust builders. So we will provide a task or get a task. We will deliver on that. And if you deliver good work, that's how we learn to trust you, to know that you can do the job that we're going to be working with you for. So the very first time that I started meeting with Brazilians at, for example, GDC San Francisco, I ended up building a relationship over eating mango ice cream every day of the conference. It was delicious. It was a great start of a relationship, but it was very much unlike what I was used to. So that really ties in. Lou, any thoughts to add?
Yeah, I think that's fun because I didn't have that experience until today. Like I am a worker that works from my home office. So for me, like if you want to get closer to create that relationship, you send emojis, you send gifts, you try to talk about the weather and how they are going, and when they open the camera, you'll say like, "Oh, that's a very nice furniture." So we try to create these relationships, but without the dinners, unfortunately. Yeah, because it's mango ice cream is the best.
I agree. So admittedly, I've had a lot of other flavors here that I really like as well, but I digress. Is there anything else that you've had to keep in mind when communicating with other cultures? And I'm talking about both when you get to meet in person as well as online. I know, Lou, you had some thoughts about some challenges, for example, that you've experienced being Brazilian and having to switch to online communication.
Yeah, it was hard. It was very hard. Luckily, my first contact online was with North Americans, and they were very warm as well because they were used to work with Brazilians. And then I had to work with some Europeans, and it was like, and I had a first meeting with them, and then they didn't smile at all. They were like this for me, and I was like, my God, they hate it. They hated this meeting. They hate everything. And we talked about work. We talked about everything that we needed to talk about, but we didn't had any informal conversation. Like it was just job. And I was like, my God, I failed so hard. And I went to our online meeting and I told that for you. And you just told me the most precious thing that was like, but here in Netherlands, we are very task-based. So we build trust when you deliver us a task. And I was like, oh, so I didn't deliver them any task. So how could they trust me? And on the next meeting, I started to talk to them task-oriented. So I didn't have any tasks at the moment, but I was always talking about the tasks that they value. And I just saw them on the camera, like they felt heard, and I realized that how important that was, and they told me their cats' names. We talked about weather, we talked about backgrounds, we switched backgrounds together. Like it was the best information they gave me. Thank you so much.
So what's super interesting about this is that I definitely recognize that you're a lot more warm, a lot more enthusiastic, a lot more expressive than, for example, the Europeans that I'm used to working with, especially in the Netherlands. But at the same time, I've more recently started working with some folks from Asian cultures. So even though you would experience us that way, there are folks from Asian cultures that I experience that with. So they regularly don't necessarily show emotion. They will not disagree with you in public or even one-on-one. They will not really challenge you. They won't ask you a bunch of questions. So it can really feel like you're in free fall when you're for the first time communicating with a culture that shows no signals that you can read. So even for us, you will see us that way, And then we will see some other cultures that way because we're looking for those kinds of signs. So, Andresa, do you have anything to add to that one?
And you imagine the gap for us from our culture to their culture.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, I've been through some experience as well. I before the gaming industry, I was working in the British consulate, and they are super formal. I was hosting like a lot of ministerial events, and there it's only shaking hands and like super serious. But in the gaming industry, it's everyone is so open to get to know everyone, and I felt so embraced, even though our culture can be a little bit invasive for some. But as I noticed that everyone in the world, when they know that we are Brazilians, they're like, "Oh, Brazilians! I love Brazilians," because as we are so warm all the time, and we are always smiling, and we are always like making some jokes about ourselves or some random experience that we had, to as also to bring the other people close, to feel closer to them. So these differences between our culture to other cultures in general, sometimes as Asians, for example, can be a little bit tricky for us to understand. But once you understand what makes them laugh, and then we'll never stop making jokes about that as well. So,
And I think something that I've also noticed in the past couple of days as I've been here is you also really enjoy sharing your culture and sharing your history. So that's also been very interesting. And for me personally, if I then look at how my relationships with folks from Asian cultures progressed, the moment that you start to get to know them a little bit better, suddenly they open up and this relationship blossoms, and they start talking about their kids, and they start talking about what's going on in their lives, and suddenly you're really good friends. So it's also about finding that way to like make that first connection and get through.
yeah, like with Brazilians, you know that you got connected with another person when you're talking about your kids, when you're talking about your dog and showing pictures. Oh my God, look at that. It's so cute.
The amount of dog pictures that I've seen in the past couple days. All right, so moving on to another question, something that is super practical but that we regularly overlook. Work hours and holidays. We approach these things very differently in every different culture. And as we prepared for this definitely came up. Andresa, thoughts?
Oh God. Everyone, like, we've been working with a lot of studios around the world. All of them think that we have so many holidays. We have more holidays than working days. And I can assure you that Brazilians, when we are not having holidays, we're working our ass out. I'm not supposed to say that, right? But anyways, yes, we're working so hard, and I can assure you that we are not well seen for all the holidays. But as we do love Carnival, though, so we have a saying in Brazil that the year only starts after Carnival. So maybe they have a point or not.
And I think something else that you also mentioned was the interpretation of the work hours, the exact hours that you work.
Oh yes, well, we do have, and I cannot say this for everyone, of course, but we do have extended working hours. So, for example, if someone now, this is from my experience, everyone is so open to be working until late to get a job done. So when we have a task to deliver, and everyone is working until the last minute of the day before to get this done, to deliver it. So yeah, sometimes the time perception can be a little bit tricky for the let's say the other countries, especially because of the time zone, right? So we do have our working hours. We have of course a work like an hour to start and an hour to finish. So and sometimes I notice that some cultures don't understand that, and with the time zone difference, they expect us to be available for them all the time, and yeah, this is something that we have to teach them as well, that we are not robots.
So Lou, if you look at the production pipeline, how can you prepare for something like this, like those differences in work or hours, but also for holidays? Is there anything that you can do to help a partner understand?
Yeah, as a producer, we always have to create a schedule looking at the holidays. Like it's impossible not to do it. And whenever we have them, while we have the project, we just need to explain for the people involved, the stakeholders, that well, this will take more 2 days or 3 days because we have a holiday. And I never had any problems with it, like relationship problems. Just small jokes like, "Oh, but you Brazilians really love some holidays, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, we love it. Yes," because we really love to spend some time with our families and our friends. But also, when we are working, we are very hard workers. So we'll stay until late working, and easily, like, you don't even have to ask someone to stay late. They will stay because they care about the project, about the project, about the relationship we have with our clients. So
Yeah, and especially if they are super passionate about it. So at Kokku we have a lot of passionate people. So when we get a project that they love, oh my God, they give everything that they have. I can say that they have played like 1,000 hours in one single game and and come up with greatest ideas. So yeah, that's great. So that puts us towards the next section of like making those cocktails, actually putting the cherry on top, making that relationship shine while still staying true to your core values. So one of the questions that we also discussed is, how do you prepare for, well, not prepare for, like, how do you enter meetings with different cultures? Is there anything in particular that you can do during the production, for example, as you prepare to do your weekly stand-ups or do your regular business meetings? How do you think about who the other side is? And I ask this to either of you. Okay. Well, it's always good to understand who are you meeting. So understanding where they come from as well, where the company was built, and how do they create, how do they understand, how do they have their meetings. So this understanding that, be prepared for respectfully having the meetings also. It's something that you have to do in advance, but I would never advise to not being like to leave our culture aside, because this define who we are, and this is what makes difference to make business with Brazilians and then with other countries, let's say like that. And I can assure you that a lot of people, most of the game industry loves to make business with us. And something that I can add there is I've read, I would warmly recommend a book called The Culture Map by Aaron Meyer, also to learn a little bit more about those other cultures that you could be encountering as you explore the international waters within the game industry. Do you have any other places you would look for information on? Do you have any recommendations for how to prepare when you realize that you might be talking to someone other than Brazilians?
yeah, just research a lot. Like you can enter the company's website, like to understand their culture, because sometimes you're going to speak with an European company and they have values that are very Mexican, like let's say that. And so I feel like we have a lot of diversity. So it's very important to make your homework, like study a little bit, and whenever you're entering the meeting, smile, so you can show people that it's okay to smile, and show that you care about their projects, about their tasks. and hopefully they will open up eventually to you. That's the biggest.
And moving on a little bit, so something that we've also discussed as we were preparing for this is that leadership also has, like, your relationship with your leadership is a little different from, for example, Dutch culture. Like in Dutch culture, we are very egalitarian. Whenever I explain this to people, like, I'm the kind of person that regardless of the company size that I'm in, the first thing that I do when I enter a company is I want to make sure that I understand the company's values and mission. And if I need to, which I generally need to, is I put my fist on the table and I say, I want to talk to the management team, because I want to understand how the management team portrays those values, portrays the mission, that I want to understand that they're real people, but, and that they carry out this message, right? So I want to also use that to inform my decision-making, to inform the way that I set priorities. But I also know that there are cultures in the world that deal with leadership a little differently. And I think from when we spoke, you also indicated that your relationship with leadership, especially because your relationship on the floor is so much more warm, so much more, in my perspective, casual, that becomes a little different. Would you agree, disagree? Thoughts on that?
I don't know. Is my boss here? Well, in Brazil, it's like we have different perspective of the relation that you have with your boss. But from my experience, we build relationship with clients and partners. We also build relationship with our bosses, and meaning that you're going to have a beer with them, you're going to go out with them, and I think I hear a little bit of interference. And also I like going out with them and meeting their families, maybe, right? So this is something that also we have a closer relationship to them. I hear an interference. I'm so sorry.
Here it's okay. Like I'm hearing.
Maybe it's mine. Yes.
How about you, Lou? I think you also had some thoughts on this one.
Yes. I'm from south of Brazil, and there, we are very. How can I say that? We understand hierarchy as a vertical thing, so it's very disrespectful if you speak with the boss of your boss. And when you told me that you were speaking with the CEO, I was like, oh my God, you are so brave. But I feel like that's the perfect approach, because I understand that, for me at least, bosses are mythical bosses. Like, they are that creature that enters the room and everyone gets quiet and you're afraid of. But in the end, they are people that you are working with them and they are working with you, and we need to build that trust. And Andresa, you stick with your managers as well. You are brave too.
Oh, I don't think I'm that brave, but I don't know. I think it depends also on the culture of each company. So this will vary. Like, I was not speaking with the ambassador when I was working, like, in the British consulate, for example. But in every other company that I work with, I was always trying to reach the big boss, to understand also why he built the company, and why, even reading the let's say the values of the company. This doesn't mean much, like, but when you meet personally the owner of the company, and then you say, oh, okay, now everything makes sense. So, and then it makes easier your job, your work, and it makes easier to understand where the company wants to go. So that's my experience, and that's why I'm never afraid of saying, hey, let's have a beer, let's have a drink or something. So yeah, that's awesome. And
yeah, now I'm breaking this down. Like I'm starting to understand that they are people and that's okay. Like they act like humans, so
Yeah, you
it's
should.
safe to get close to them.
Yeah, don't be afraid because in the end they're all humans, right? Or not? Maybe they are AI. Yeah, I don't know.
I think what's extremely valuable that you're highlighting here is that not just is the relationship with leadership different between different cultures, but it can also be different between different companies. So even if you are a Brazilian company working with another Brazilian company, the relationship with leadership, the culture of each of these companies can be very different. So it's not even just Brazilians working internationally, it's also Brazilians working with another Brazilian company. Or even with another Brazilian individual. It could even be different within a company where, for example, Lou or Andresa would be working with one of their colleagues that has a very different interpretation of what leadership means. So we might end up having space for questions. So now is the time to start thinking of any questions that you might have. But in the meantime, we're here at a conference. We're here at Big Festival in Brazil. Is there anything when it comes to meeting folks from other cultures at a conference that is a little different from building that relationship, like starting that relationship, building the pipeline virtually, or even if you kick it off with an in-person meeting? Like, what would you do different? What are you doing differently at a conference when you meet people from other cultures?
Everybody looking at me. Well, what I do differently I just cannot hear myself, so I'm just taking this off. So usually what I do before events is to understand who am I meeting. I told you that. But preparing is always good. I try to make always a joke, even with Germans, which they're so serious, but they end up like relaxing and okay, so we're good to go. Because it's when most of the events that we go, we don't know the people that we are meeting, right? So we just go there and you have no idea who you're meeting and if they had a bad day or if they had a good day or if they are jet lagged, or you have no idea. And you only have like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, for example, here at Big Festival to make a good impression, to build trust, maybe, to show that you care and that you actually, that you are a perfect partner for their job. But in the end, it all falls to having that meeting and showing your respect. So, and that respect can be a single way, like for some people, or the way that you get the card, or the way that you start the meeting. So I don't know, like this varies so differently.
And I can give you a hint of something that, and this is not just Brazilian culture, but something else that definitely Brazilian culture does, is not just the way that you start a meeting at a conference, but also the way that you end a meeting at a conference. Because you guys, you always bring gifts.
Sweets.
And that is
We love
most usually. Yeah.
Yes, candy, cake.
Exactly. So that's definitely a standout as well. Of course, make sure that you think about the size and the weight, because not everyone has enough space in their trolley to bring everything, and they can't always take it through customs. But, there are definitely options for you to think about, making that conference experience just a little bit more special by...
Yeah. Always bring cachaça, though. They're always happy about alcohol. I don't know why.
Excellent. Anything to add, Lou, from your side, or?
This is my first conference, so I'm just like very surprised to see everyone like in a 3D model. Like I usually see 2D only at Google Meet, so it's very nice to see that everyone is a 3D model and it's not AI. So
How many polygons? Yeah. And the one thing that we also really started noticing, especially post-COVID, as we started meeting people for the first time in person, it's like, Whoa, you are tall.
Yeah.
Like how tall people are.
Yeah. Yesterday, I was like, people were approaching me and saying like, "My God, you're so short." And then I said, "I'm sorry. I'll try harder next time."
No, exactly. All right. And then both of you have a super interesting background. So you haven't always been in the game industry, neither of you. You've come from a very different background. Are there any differences that you would highlight between working in other industries and having come into the game industry, especially as it pertains to working with other cultures? I mean, Andresa, you've mentioned this about the consulate, for example.
Oh yeah, no need to be too formal. So bring another one.
I mean, we were talking earlier today how at a previous company, I would enter an online meeting and I'd be talking to a lawyer with a big mustache and a Hawaii shirt and shorts. So, you know, that's our industry as well. Lou, any thoughts from your side on that?
I never saw someone using a Hawaiian shirt, but yeah, awesome. Yeah, the informality of the gaming market, it's awesome. I worked in companies that were very strict and formal, and here you actually feel like you can speak to CEOs and their people and all this the construction of myths that we create on our heads. It's awesome, and I feel like since especially the Brazilian industry, gaming industry, it's very small. We have that feeling of community yet, so maybe we'll lose that. I don't know, but
It's growing. It's growing. Everyone wants us.
yeah,
No, but it's true. I noticed a run to getting business with Brazilians, especially because of time zone pricing, which is really competitive. And yeah, and as we are talking about this the whole evening, we are friendly, we're warm, and we build true relations.
Yeah, I can absolutely concur with Andresa. Like something that we find as EA very attractive is that time zone advantage, is also that cost of living advantage. So those are definitely aspects. They're hard business aspects, not necessarily culture, but they're worth keeping in mind that they are a strong advantage as well. So I think we have time for one question for from the audience, if anyone has. Oh, multiple. I am not sure if we're getting.
Is anyone going to get, I don't know, the mic?
Mic is on the way.
Boa tarde. Bom, eu gostaria de perguntar para a Juney o seguinte. Você, como alguém de uma empresa tão grande como a Electronic Arts, como vocês veem os profissionais brasileiros e a mão de obra brasileira e a nossa postura profissional?
I've been working with Brazilian partners for 7 years. Oh, sorry, hearing myself. There we go. I have been working with Brazilian partners for 7 years, and I'm Dutch. I'm very direct and honest. If I did not like working with Brazilian partners, I would not be working with Brazilian partners for 7 years. So there are partners that I have brought with me from my first company to my second company that I've brought with me to EA. So yes, I can absolutely consider you to be professional. There are absolutely things that I have had to learn, things that I've had to accommodate to, that were differences between my culture and Brazilian culture that took some pain and took some months to really set both sides up for success while staying true to our core values. But everything about these relationships that I've had has allowed me to develop, to become a better human being, to learn, to develop, to grow. So for me, working with Brazilian culture has been, and this is me talking not necessarily on behalf of EA, but for me, it's been a wonderful experience over the years.
We now live in a hybrid world. Do you approach cross-cultural communication and collaboration differently virtually versus in person?
Oh, that's a nice question. Yes, definitely. With online meetings and on-site meetings and online meetings, that for me and for my colleagues are completely different. We have to find, as Lou spoke earlier, we have to find ways of building this connection, which then brings what Ginny said about task delivery. We try to tell them that we respect them by giving them what they want and being available all the time. But in a person meeting, you just ask the person to go out and then you talk about business. So it's completely different.
So it looks like we've run out of time. We're going to be here for a little bit longer. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can probably recognize us. We'll be available for you if you have anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Galera, salve de palmas. Papo muito legal.